listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
That's on Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, we have another awesome show lined up for y'all today. Today, we have a special guest. You ever seen videos on, TED Talks? Well, guess what? This guy is a TEDx presenter. And he has an amazing story, a powerful story. He's been through a lot, but he's also overcame a lot with great success, and he's helping a lot of people today. Just like you, our viewers and our listeners on radio, we have a special guest, Savio P. Clemente. He has an easy website. Just go to SavioPClemente.com. He is not just in leadership, he's focused on healthcare. So not just a keynote speaker, not just a presenter. He's a two-time cancer survivor. And he is someone that you need to listen to his story. So I just want to cut to the chase and skip all the amazing accomplishments in your bio and say, first of all, Savio, thanks for being on the show, man. How you doing?
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to see what we unearthed today.
And you have something that is worth sharing after undergoing a life-saving stem cell transplant. I want you to unpack for the audience, what was it like to go through that process and just be where you are today?
Yeah. So let me just backtrack a little bit. So I was initially diagnosed in 2014 with stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It came out of nowhere. It's a blood cancer. It doesn't run in my paternal or maternal family. And so it was very perplexing. At that moment in time, I was someone who just really took care of myself really well. I exercised, I ate the right foods, I meditated, I made sure to keep stress low. But it happened to me. I did 6 rounds of something called A.L.O.H.A chemotherapy. It was fast and furious. In about 4.5 months of that, I got my remission status, and then I was cancer-free for almost 10 years, until June of 2024, which is when I had my relapse, this time in a different part of the body, in my nasal cavity of all places. And strangely enough, I knew something was wrong. I was sensitive enough to know, not that I thought it was cancer, but I knew something was going on. And sure enough, it was, in fact, a relapse. And I met with my doctor, and he took about an hour and a half and explained to me the comprehensive treatment protocol for something like a relapse or a refractory, as they call it. It involved 2-3 day stays at the hospital. I had to get a neck catheter in order to extract my own stem cells. I had to harvest them. Usually it's about 1 to 3 days of doing that in an office setting. Fortunately, I got mine just one day. Then I had to spend 29 days in the hospital. Typically, it's 21 days. They gave you back your own stem cells. I encountered tachycardia, where every time I would stand up, my pulse would go to like 160, 170. So much so, one day I had to be rushed to the ICU to get norepinephrine. I left the hospital after 29 days. I lost about 26 pounds. There was about a week that I just didn't feel like eating at all. I had bad cases of diarrhea, et cetera, et cetera. And when I came home, they did scans and blood work, and it looks like the stem cell transplant worked. I ended up getting a complete response to treatment. They call it a CR, also call it a complete remission, but I don't use the word remission anymore because I had my first bout with remission. But my oncologist said, Savio, there is a clinical trial. You can do an immunotherapy, which basically boosts the immune cells. It's an insurance policy. You don't have to do it. And my sister was like, why would you want to do that after going through all you've been through? I'm like, because if I don't do the full protocol, I'll always have a regret and not wonder if I did what I was supposed to do. So I did that for 4.5 months. I got about 8 rounds of that immunotherapy. And then I did 5 months of physical therapy, because once you get a stem cell transplant, a few things happen. Your bone marrow is completely depleted. And when you get your stem cells, it has to rebuild itself. And so you're of the sort. And so I can happily say, after 16 months of doing all of this, including aspirations, I am cancer-free again.
I appreciate you sharing that amazing story, by the way. I mean, wow. it's like, it's kind of hard to come back and say, well, let's talk about this now. Like, it's so heavy. But what I want to ask you is, after surviving cancer, how did that transform your perspective in what you're doing now with your mission, helping so many people?
Yeah. So I like to say that my professional background is definitely something that I worked very hard at, but nothing prepared me for what life was going to be like going through a life-saving stem cell transplant. You literally, by the way, you get a second birth date. I thought they were like giving me some woo-woo concept, and it wasn't. They actually give you a second medical birth date. It's actually considered a medical rebirth. And I was like, what? And like, yeah. So now I have a actual birth date in the winter, and now I have another birth date in the summer, which is when I got my stem cell transplant. So it prepared me really well in the sense of talking about what happens after the crisis. A lot of us want to focus on the crisis, and that's very important. And they think that once the crisis is over, everything's good, but that's not the way it works. When you deal with any sort of crisis, mine's happened to be cancer or something medical, it's about what happens after. That's where you win or lose, because that's when you have to recalibrate, reorientate, and figure out a new way forward, and not only a new way normal, but a way to actually figure out how can I take my experiences and leverage them to help not only myself, but to help other people. And so my focus is with healthcare leaderships, because I really focused on this idea that performance doesn't fail first, clarity fails first. And so if you're able to gain clarity, like I did within my experience, I did the best I could to integrate everything I've known. I'm a board certified health and wellness coach. And so I practice what I preached. I use things like reframing. So instead of seeing the chemo as poisonous, I saw it as an elixir. I saw it as they call it mana in the Bible, which is like life force from the universe. And so I submitted and surrendered to that, because that particular type of medication is designed scientifically and medically to do what it's supposed to do. So if I resist, I'm not actually getting the benefits of it. And yes, I'm not trying to undermine the fact that it totally, wipes out your hair. Now it's a look for me. And I'm not trying to undermine the fact that you feel crappy. People vomit. I didn't really do that, a lot of that, but I did have a lot of diarrhea and things of that nature. So yes, it's not great. The feeling of it is not great, but you have to allow that process to take shape and form. In the hospital with the stem cell transplant, they actually give you a quarantine room because they have to stave off any infections. And so, Shemaya, all I had at my disposal were two things that were freely available, which is silence and stillness. I only had those two things available, and so I sunk deeply into it. And I really figured out for myself, who is the Savio that's actually in the bed, who's been hooked up to machines every 4 hours? They check your vitals. The care team comes in. They do their rounds. Who is this person, this physical person, going through this turmoil? And who is the other parts of me? My emotional center was still there. My mental acuity was still there. My spirit was still alive. Who is that other person? So I really had a first lived experience of doing something called metacognition, which is the thinking of the thinking. Who's the brain or the consciousness thinking about my situation? So that was really intriguing. And then I did something really radical. Instead of looking at it as resilience of bouncing back, I looked at it as adaptive resilience. And this is something that I speak on stages and that I coach people with. This idea that when you're in the SHIT, when you're in that discomfort, how are you going to be flexible and create strategies from that? So in other words, when my care team came to me and saw me every day, I made sure I mustered as much energy as I possibly could to meet them, because they weren't only healing me, we were healing each other. We were working together to try to figure out the situation. And so I made sure that I met them that way. And then lastly, I did something called psychological distancing. So I didn't detach from the situation. I was alive, but I also created a buffer between me and the problem. So that gave me a little bit of release, and the pressure was actually lessened. And so I speak a lot about pressure on stages, but mine was something that it's not about pressure in a job function. It's pressure in life or death, which is pretty high stakes.
Speaking of high stakes, you understand what it's like to make critical decisions, to say the least. Talk about, for our audience, the ability to not just make critical decisions, but often understanding the quality of your decisions, and how were you able to refocus and not be down on yourself, but say, you know what, I gotta do what I gotta do in this moment.
Yeah. So this actually echoes my framework, which is the adaptive resilience framework, and really posits that it's not that people are just unaware, but they just are not keen to the signals and the patterns that life and situations is sending them. And so the way to do it is really to have a lot of self-regulation. And how do you do that? So for me, I'm a long-time meditator. I've been meditating for over 20 years. I was meditating before my first cancer bout in 2014. And so it started off with like 1 minute, and now it's like 20 minutes a day. It's nothing formal. It's very basic. Instrumental music, lying down after I wake up in the morning. I get it done, and I actually feel more balanced. But you could do it through prayer. You could do it through journaling. You could do it through breathing exercises, taking a brisk walk, whatever actually works for you to regulate that, to allow that nervous system of yours to actually calm the vagus nerve as well. Do those tools. But I am someone who's not very prescriptive, because what works for me doesn't work for someone else. And you have to actually find something that's actually sustainable. Because if you do something and you find out that you don't really enjoy it, you're not going to do it. So at the end of the day, for me, those were some of the tools that, for me, I used, because it really helped me help me shape what is it that I actually want from this experience. So rather than saying, I want to get out of this hospital, right, which, of course, after 29 days, you want to get out. But rather than saying that, I said to myself, okay, in this moment of discomfort and anguish and fear and uncertainty, what do I want to leave with? What is this experience actually not only trying to show me, but what is this experience trying to make me release? Because I truly believe that life is a series of catch and release. And we need to, in order to fill our pot, we have to actually empty out the contents. Otherwise, the pot can never be full. And just like the great Erykah Badu once said in one of her songs, the bag lady, I think it was, you have to release some of those bags. And so I said, well, what in this moment did I have to release? Right now, my body is releasing a lot. So let's see if my fears and my frustrations can be released as well.
Once again, listen on Refocus Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Savio P. Clemente. Go to his website. It's super easy. It's Savio P. Clemente.com. And speaking of frustrations, a lot of leaders are, they're human. Life happens. Throws you curveballs, we get frustrated. But when you think about the work you do with healthcare executives, you talk about a demanding schedule on their calendars and the stress that they have to deal with and regulate. What are some of the things that you're seeing with unique pressures in the healthcare industry that they could be facing right now?
Yeah. Well, Pressure, there's actually a movie out right now called Pressure, which talks about Eisenhower and D-Day and World War II. So I'm going to actually see that this weekend. But sometimes pressure is a good thing, especially in the personal field. If you think about it, a diamond doesn't get formed unless it has pressure. But in the physical setting, you're right. Yes, absolutely. Healthcare leaders, it's so much. It's high stakes because it's their life, it's their team, their organization, and then another human being. And usually when it comes to that, that's when they sort of fall off kilter. That's where disruption happens. You can't ignore what's happening outside of our own personal world, socially, politically, now technologically with AI. And so for me, it's always, the pressure hasn't really gone quiet. It's just gone internal, because that's where you rise or you fall. And most of the time when it comes to healthcare leaders, they're great at relying on evidence and data and their expertise and their knowledge. Wonderful. But there is a reason why they say that doctors don't make the great patients, because they're great at actually giving out that information, but actually to swallow it or to feel into it is really hard. So a couple of things. I mean, as a coach, executive coach, I often go into the body. So my work is a lot of embodiment work, somatic work. And so basically without you doing just talk therapy, it's about how does that actually feel or hit into the body. Where in your body is that actually happening? And so I call it the three brains, the head, heart, or gut. That's usually where it sort of originates from. And it's a visual exercise we do. I actually have them visualize like an elevator and going down the elevator. And so now what's happening? What are you sensing? What are you feeling? What are you actually seeing? What are you holding on to? And finding some way for them to not only release it, but finding them way to get some context out of it. And then I referenced a little bit of my TEDx talk. So I did a TEDx talk about 2 years prior to my relapse. And it was called 7 Minutes to Wellness, How to Love Your Inner Stranger. And someone once said to me, what do you mean inner stranger? And I'm like, well, I left it nebulous on purpose. And they're like, okay, so what's your inner stranger? And I'm like, my inner stranger, if I had to be honest, was probably that young person that never felt completely grounded and rooted. I always felt like I was kind of, I don't know, I just never really felt attached to a lot. And so she's like, oh, I get it. She's like, my inner stranger then is that idealized female executive that I want to be that I just can't seem to reach, or that great mother I want to be, or that great sibling I just can't be. And so I created a little mini framework within that framework, and it's called the A.L.O.H.A Reboot. And as we all know, aloha in Hawaiian means hello. So it's a hello to your inner self. And so it's A stands for acknowledge. So like me, acknowledge what's happening, how you're feeling, where you are. Don't pretend it's not happening. Don't pretend you want to escape it. Just actually sink into it, because naming things and calling out things and actually stating things is very important, because then we don't get confused. We don't do something called spiritual bypassing. We don't actually pretend something is happening. So acknowledge what's happening, whether that's a word vomit, type it out, write it out, cry it out, whatever you need to do. L stands for listening. So in Hawaiian, there is a healing modality called huna healing. And in huna healing, the kahunas of the day, the kings of the day, believe that the body not only sends you sensations, but it actually gives you language. It gives you consciousness. There's something that's actually speaking to us. And so they believe you can talk to the body. Now, obviously, you can't do this in front of other people. They're going to think you're strange. But if you just remain still and silent, you can actually ferret out some of that information. O stands for opening. So open yourself up to this. I mean, it really doesn't matter what belief system you ascribe to. At the end of the day, you're just examining and looking into self. H stands for harnessing. So harness this information, see what works, what doesn't work, what the connections are, see what you can actually relate to, or what you can actually just discard. And then A is the most important, obviously. It's acting, but it's a caveat. You have to have courage to act. A lot of the data right now really points to this idea that it's not that people do not want to change, that people don't know how to change. And so there's these series of steps called the models of change. And it posits that once again, that people really do want to, but they just don't know if they're thinking about change, pre-contemplation in change. When they're in change, are they thinking about relapsing? And so at the end of the day, you have to have courage in order to do that. And a lot of people say to me, Savio, but I just don't have 7 minutes. Okay, you don't have 7 minutes? Take one of the acronyms and practice that for one day. Take 1 minute of your day to practice that over the course of 5 days. And so that's called the A.L.O.H.A Reboot.
And for those watching, listening, if you want to find 7 minutes, wake up 7 minutes earlier. I mean, boom, right there. You know, that right there will give you a lot of time to make that happen. So once again, listen to Refocus Radio and watching us online, talking to our special guest today, Savio P. Clemente. Go to his website. It's saviopclemente.com. You are also a journalist. I forgot to put that out there. You've done a ton of reporting, so kind of spill the beans for our audience. What else are you doing that's like you have time on your calendar to do? What have you been able to learn in that world, in that space as well?
So a few things. So at this point, it's over 2,000 interviews with leaders, change makers, and also celebrities. I've interviewed Venus Williams, Ice-T, Deborah Messing, and I also covered the red carpet at the Oscars. And it's interesting, and I'm going to tell you this story because when I was there covering it, it's not my beat, by the way. My beat is health, wellness, and leadership. But my editor gave me this assignment, so I went to L.A. I had a friend actually who lives in L.A. as well. So we hung out. Yeah, we hung hung out in Venice and Malibu before the fires. And I was there with a whole bunch of other publications, like really high, well-known entertainment publications. So they would come by. And I realized something. I realized they were still acting. Here I'm thinking they're there on the red carpet. No, they are acting for me as a journalist. They're acting for their handler, their manager, the photographers. They're still in character. They're not actually being real, authentically real. And so it really taught me a great lesson, especially in my interviews, because I see it all the time, that we all, and I cop to it too, put on a mask. And of course, those things are important sometimes in life, especially like I'm close to New York City. You can't go to New York City and pretend you're you have to actually have a little bit of armor around you, a little bit. But generally speaking, what I actually found is the thread throughout all of them is, and I also have interviewed over 200 cancer survivors. This is before my relapse. And I actually wrote a best-selling book called I Survived Cancer. Here is how I did it. 35 cancer survivors share their journey. I took 35 of their stories, told my own. And even in their telling my interviews with them, the central theme was always about forgiveness. And it wasn't forgiveness about someone else that wronged them. It was forgiveness to themselves, what they did not do or did do in life, that they're still actually repeating some sort of mental process or emotional process that they have not unpacked yet. And I see it time and time again. And it's the same thing that I see on the red carpet as well, because when I went there, I was assuming one thing, but then my coach brain, my speaker brain, and my journalist brain were all like, no, you see, as we call it, the remnants underneath the glacier. So if you're in like place like Alaska, for example, you see the beautiful glacier, but underneath it, there's this unsaid, unspoken items that people just don't address or don't want to address. And so if I'm being really truthful, that's what I see usually when I'm even interviewing. And of course, I have to use a different part of myself, because when you're a journalist, you just ask the questions. You don't really go deeper into it. But when you're a coach, that's your job. And so you have to know when to hit that particular trigger, and you don't want to trigger people as well. So I know for myself, my story is very dramatic. 2-time cancer patient, 2-time cancer survivor. And it's very triggering to a lot of people. I'm going to be really truthfully honest with you. I don't even share that part of me unless I'm really safe, or I feel safe enough to do it, because it triggers people. They think about their own mortality. They think about people they've lost. And then people say to me, well, why are you still here? And like, without sounding rude. And I often say to them, I don't know. I'm just trying to do the best I can, because at this point since my relapse, I've lost about 9 people to cancer, and some of them, it was just their first bout. So I say that for me, this whole journey is not a burden. It's actually a great responsibility that I take very seriously.
As you're looking ahead, there's always going to be challenges, especially in healthcare, and their leadership is a very noble thing to do. It's not easy at all. And it's never going to be easy, unfortunately. And as you look ahead, what are some of the things that you see could continue to challenge leadership and business as well?
Yeah. So currently I'm running an interview series with CEOs and CMOs on the healthcare leadership operating system. So I'm getting in the ground perspectives from these individuals who run healthcare AI companies all the way to, traditional organizations. And what's interesting to me was one of the interviews I did, he mentioned that the healthcare system in the U.S. right now is estimated to be $760 to $935 billion, with a B, $1 billion in healthcare waste. Now, is that just in equipment? No, that's in decision making. That's in human bodies making decisions. So a few things. I do think I'm a proponent of AI to be used responsibly. So, as you know, I'm a journalist, and I was in a cohort with other journalists, and one of them actually says she feels guilty. She's a purist. She's a purist writer. She's like, I feel guilty for using AI. And my whole feeling was, anytime you use the word guilt with any other description, as Yoda would say, you need to search your feelings, because that's telling you something. And so I think there is a way to use it adequately, properly. I also think when it comes to healthcare and wellness, it's two different silos, and healthcare has a lot of gripes with wellness, which I can understand because some of these things are uber expensive and they just seem like they are actually lying to people. And I can see wellness point of view that not everything needs a medication. Not everything is about pharmaceuticals. So I totally get it, but I think there needs to be more language and more connection with the two. Like I said, I sit in the middle ground of health and wellness because I'm board certified in that. So for me, I understand where those pockets of opportunities lie. But it was just shocking to me when I found out about that particular number, because the healthcare leaders I deal with, really, they are often having to always have the answer to things. And when you always are the person who has the answer to things, you actually forget about what's actually happening with you and your world within that particular system.
Well, this is a huge topic that we managed to get done in 26 minutes. So with that said, this on Refocus Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Savio P. Clemente. Go to his website, saviopclemente.com. I know it's not that much time, but if you had one last thing you would like to say to health professionals and those who are listening and watching us today, what would that be?
I would say I would say it's important nowadays. It's not like we lack the ability to have content. We can get content in seconds with AI. We actually have to have more connection. So instead of content, we need more connection. So I urge, I implore, I invite individuals to really come back to your own inner workings and figuring out actually what are the things that you can actually address, change, tweak, fix, or even have it be more expressed, have it be more flourishing with your life. I think that's really important because I think we're coming to the point where the human element, I think we are coming to this crux where the human element is feeling like we are putting it to the side and actually embracing only tech. And I think we need to regain back control with that.
Well, once again, this is on Refocus Radio and watching us online, talking to Savio. Like always, want to say to you, thank you for your time.
Yep. Thank you so much, Mia. And people can find me social media at The Human Resolve if they want to find me. I'm on every platform.